everybody. We're here, episode 3 of the Commercial Guys Podcast. I'm here with Andrew. Andrew, how are you?
Hey, good. How you doing, Jeff?
Good. We made it to episode 3.
Yes.
Thank you for everybody that's watched the 2 first episodes. I know our first was kind of just an intro. But last 2 weeks ago, we were able to have a conversation with Mark Hall, our president of Atlanta Communities. We had a real good conversation about commercial real estate and the differences between that and residential and why it's important to team up with somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to a commercial transaction, or at least seek advice. Today, we wanted to take a few minutes just to kind of talk about how we can do that. How can we work together? How you can find us deals. And I say us, meaning you included. We, at some level, like to include everybody that brings us a referral into our transaction when it becomes one. So Andrew wants to talk a little bit about that, and we'll get into kind of the meat of what we do and how we get these things to the finish line. Andrew?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. So like you were saying, a lot of our business is referral based, and this year alone, we paid out over $100,000 in commission to other agents, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so it just shows you, if you send us a call, you don't have to be, fully involved in the process, or you can be as involved as you want to be. And we don't do just the typical 25% commission. We're willing to get creative, and we're willing to, every deal is different. So we wanted to talk today about an example of something that happened this year of that shows the referrals in a few different ways and the benefit of that. And then we also want to get into what exactly we're looking for, so you could add that to your daily prospecting. Even one phone call could be a $50,000 check in your pocket. So
Yeah.
I say that hypothetically, but we've also paid more than that before. Um, so Jeff, this year you and I were involved in a transaction that was really interesting, and the way we did it was creative. So could you explain a little bit of what happened
Yeah.
and how that played out?
Yeah. So it was unique. This was a wedding venue here in Georgia, North Georgia. The owner's daughter-in-law is actually an agent, and she reached out to me. We've known each other for years and asked for some assistance just because of the nature of the transaction. This is a residential agent that doesn't always do, commercial transactions. And
Mm,
this is also a little bit more difficult. Plus you have the family aspect of it, which sometimes it's great and sometimes it can complicate things. So
yeah.
we agreed to work together on it. And ironically, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks later, Andrew gets a phone call from another agent referring him a buyer for a wedding venue. And of course, the first thought we have is, whoa, this is too easy, right? And it ended up not being very easy. It was a lot of twists and turns, a lot of complications getting it to the finish line, but we were able to do so. And those are kind of like a co-op situation where you work more closely. I have the knowledge of the transaction. That agent has the family relationship. So you kind of needed both of us at that time to really get through it properly and
Right.
make everybody feel warm and fuzzy. And then I also had, a referral from another good friend of mine, an agent from another brokerage.
Hmm.
This is actually in 22, end of 22, but the dream kind of came to fruition the beginning of this year. The client was referred to me to buy retail centers. We found 2 that were brand new retail centers built in Paulding County. Beautiful, really nice looking centers, fully
Yeah.
occupied,
Gorgeous.
except for one space. That one space is where the referral client also opened one of their restaurants. And that's, I can say who that is. It's Cluck and Moo Restaurant, which was in West Cobb and Georgia Tech campus. Now they have a location in Paulding. At the same time, that client also purchased a pad, a commercial pad, next to those 2 existing retail centers, on which they are now building the first ever full package store in Paulding County unincorporated. So
There we go.
actually, yeah, and it was that was all approved January 1 by the county. They finally allowed for package stores.
Hmm.
And she was one of the first applicants because she already had the property, already owned it. They built the building. That, funny enough, they started in like June of this year with the building, and they are opening sometime next week. So,
Amazing.
and if you're familiar with the process, that's really long process normally, but because they were able to get a lot of the ticker tape parade out of the way in the beginning, they were able to just start building and not stop until it was done. So that was
Yeah.
another one where we were able to write a check to someone who really, in that case, just made a phone call. They didn't have to be involved in the everyday. So it's different. It's always different. And we know that you don't want to lose relationships with your clients. You don't want to hand off a client and never see them again because now I'm their favorite, or now that I'm working with them and they think I'm their realtor for everything. We
Yeah.
want to maintain your relationships with your clients, but when the transaction gets to be complicated, and maybe you don't know how to navigate it, we don't want you to be at risk. Kind of exactly what Mark talked about last week. So we can be creative with commission structures and how we work together and how much you want to be involved. But Andrew, there's something that you wanted to speak to as well. Everybody prospects, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Everybody,
how can they prospect for commercial business?
I'm glad you asked, Jeff. And it's cool because, this is a new way that you can prospect every single day. I mean, hopefully you're prospecting every day, at least a few times a week. And this is an added thing now that you can add to your phone calls. And we're going to tell you the criteria of what we're looking for today. We'll even, bring up a couple of scenarios of what people might say back to you and what you can say. And then we can go further in depth. If you can feel free to reach out to us and, we'll actually train you to make these phone calls. And it can be, like Jeff said, as simple as a phone call. You send it our way. We negotiate the commission. Typically it's 25, sometimes it's more. And you can make a really good commission check by making one phone call. So, we'll talk about that. Some of the things we're looking for, we'll just dive right into that. And we're looking across, obviously in commercial, there's a lot of different avenues you can take. And we're going to give you the top 3 or 4 today. So one is land, raw land with buildings on it even, but land for development is something big that we're looking for. And we have a lot of different developers in this world, anywhere from gas station developers to townhomes to single family homes to grocery stores, to commercial, where a Starbucks is or where a McDonald's is, that kind of building. We have developers who will build that. So we're always looking for different kinds of land. Jeff, if you want, go for it.
Something I want to bring up about that is there's a lot of land out there for sale. There's a lot of people that think that they can sell I could sell my property for millions of dollars and they can build all these houses, and while that may be the case in a lot of instances, the land has to be right. When I say right, I mean there's so many factors that go into development, and we'll probably get into this in another video a lot more deeply. But the questions you got to kind of ask there is, okay, how many acres is it? Is there water on the property? What is the topography like? Because some of these properties are on the side of a cliff and it's not very easy to build homes on them. Are there utilities available? Most likely you're going to find that there's power and water available. In most cases. Sewer is always a trick, because sewer is not commonly readily available in all parts of the counties that we work in. So sewer is a big thing. You can't get density without sewer, and a lot of these builders don't want to mess with it. They don't look to build subdivisions with septic tanks anymore. It's kind of outdated. Now there are still instances where they will, but not very often, and that also decreases the value of the property. So there's got to be a lot of factors. Then we looked at a deal yesterday where it's a piece of land, but there's so many things that had to be thought of when they planned this site, and there was roundabouts that had to be put in for access. There were easements that have to be purchased to get access. And if you have so many homes in a community, they have to have multiple entrances for emergency purposes. And so there's a lot of analysis that has to go on to really see if this land is for development. That being said, you may not know those questions. It's the old adage, you don't know what you don't know, right? We know the questions to ask. We get asked them on a daily basis by the people that we work with, the developers that we work with. So that's a simple phone call. Hey, my uncle has 50 acres he wants to sell. Tell me what it looks like. And I would encourage you, this is the last thing we'll say about land. Don't tell them what you think it's worth until we answer all those questions.
Yes.
Because a lot of people get a premonition that it's worth a lot of money because so and so down the road sold theirs for 100,000 an acre, but it's not the same piece of land. So there's a lot of things that have to be answered before that is. I'm speaking there of large tract. Small tract land is good too. Signalized intersections. Any intersection for that matter.
Any intersection.
Any intersection. Anything usually over a half acre we could work with. Might be a different client, but half acre to 2 to 3 acres. Those are also, you obviously not going to fit 50 houses on it, but gas stations, C-stores.
You
name it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Jeff. And then on the residential side, we'd be looking for anywhere from, that's a lot bigger. I mean, we would look up to 300, 400 acres, even more, minimum size for a residential subdivision, probably 20 acres, 10 acres if it's in a really good location and we could put a lot of townhomes on it. But again, we can make those calls and those questions. But back to what Jeff said too, sewer is the lifeblood of projects, especially residential projects. So having that and knowing that right away is huge.
So from a prospecting perspective, you get a phone call or you make a phone call and the guy says, I have 30 acres I'd like to sell. You can get into all those questions if you're comfortable, or you could just say, hey, let me have one of my commercial specialists call you back. You call us, we answer the questions, we tell you how it goes, and we keep you involved as much as you want to be. So
and we definitely update. If you don't want to be involved, we'll keep you updated. We'll keep, tell you everything along the way of how it's going. And, we love making that phone call saying, hey, we're scheduled to close here and this is going to be, what your check is. So
those are fun texts and calls to make. So.
It's fun. So moving on from land, and again, call us if you have questions about land and any of these, and we'll, give you more details of what we're looking for. But let's talk about retail centers, Jeff. You mentioned a retail center deal you did. Can you tell us a little bit about, what we'd be looking for in that world?
So retail centers are retail centers, right? They're some of them are what we call a neighborhood center. They don't have a big anchor tenant. It's usually, 5 or 6 tenants, nail salon, maybe a Domino's. I mean, it could be anything, right? Small retailers, they don't need a lot of space. And then you got your, I wouldn't go as far as saying a mall because I think the mall world is coming to an end. But, you got your public shopping centers. You've got your sporting goods like Dick's and Office Max and all these bigger tenants. So the real answer is that any retail center is prime for picking right now. A lot of buyers out there, we happen to know, I don't know how many of them, but quite a few, and they're all kind of looking for something different. We have some that look for what's called value add, where maybe it needs some physical work, but also more importantly, it needs some financial work. So you have tenants that either there's a lot of vacancies or tenants that are subpar in rent, and that they can look over time and say, okay, well, I can start to turn these tenants over into better tenants that are paying higher rates, more close to market rents. And in 3 to 5 years, I can turn around and sell this for a profit because now I've got higher value tenants, or I've put a new roof on, or I've restriped the parking lot or whatever. So those are kind of your value add things. You also we have groups that are looking for things that are already done. There was a retail center that I shared with Andrew that he shared with one of his clients in Douglasville. And I had seen it years ago. I was showing a tenant for potential space down there, and they had just redid the whole fascia of the building and did a lot of improvements. They redid the parking lot. I mean, they did a lot to it. And his folks had already known about this deal, but basically said, that's exactly what we're looking for. Keep sending them. So that wasn't right for them, but they are a group, and there are many of other groups that do look for those. Hey, you already did the work, it's the flip. And then, size doesn't really matter necessarily. The biggest part about these is the financial aspect. So you take what your rents are and you take minus your expenses and your taxes, your insurance, gives you a number called NOI. It's your net operating income, right? So this is the bottom line for investors that buy these types of centers, and not just retail centers, but triple net investments. Like, someone owns that Arby's down the street. Arby's doesn't own it. A private person does, or capital company does.
Yeah.
Arby's is just a tenant in
Right.
most cases. McDonald's would be one exception to that, but the numbers what matters. That NOI translates into a cap rate based on what the sale price is. Higher the sale price is, the lower the cap rate is. So they're looking for a good cap rate, which is generally 6 to 7, now even in the 8s, which means they're gonna want a lower price. Basically, you got to account for interest rates and the cost of money nowadays. So that was the long answer to your question. The
That was
quick
good.
answer is any retail center is good for at least looking at. So you make a call or you get a call of someone that has a retail center, do the same thing. Give us a call. We'll do the breakdown. We'll show you how to do it. We'll talk it through with you. We'll present it to who we know, and if maybe we get a bite. So, and actually, I'm probably going to go into next industrial buildings, Andrew. Same thing. Same thing on those. It's the same questions usually if there's a tenant. But you brought up something earlier that I think you can speak to is the sale leaseback scenario, which is becoming a little bit more popular now that the interest rates are so high, and that I think people want to free up capital.
Yes,
and sale leaseback is a good way to do that.
Yeah, the sale leaseback. I'm glad you bring that up. It's a really cool. It's a retirement instrument for people. So there's a couple scenarios. Right now, we're working with a prospective seller who they don't want to necessarily sell their business just yet, but they would in the next couple of years. But they're willing to sell their real estate. So that what they're going to do is hopefully is a sale leaseback, and they can pull out all their money on the building. They can stay as a tenant and in negotiated lease that they will sign at the closing table. And it works out for both parties. You get an investor who has a tenant who's been there for a long time, who is going to take care of the building because this is their baby. And and then you have the opportunity to in a few years get a new tenant in there. And so it works out for the investor, it works out for the seller, it works out for everyone's timing. So it's a really cool instrument. And if you know anyone who owns a business we're talking industrial buildings that could be considered flex as well. And so those could be anywhere from 5,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. And a lot of times these guys, they'll like either single tenant or they'll like multi-tenant situations. So we
the sale
did one
leaseback
with
is a little
Tucker.
more difficult on a multi-tenant, obviously, because you're dealing with multiple
Exactly. Well, for that specific, usually a single tenant. We had one in Tucker last year, and we sold out. It was a 40,000 square foot building, and it was single tenant, and worked out really well. So that's another scenario in this world that we can, especially in the industrial single tenant, we can offer that to your clients, and it can be a really cool vehicle. So
it's good stuff. So those are kind of our hot buttons right now. Obviously, anything commercial, we're glad to talk about. I've spent most of my year, actually most of my last 4 years, doing commercial leasing for retail, industrial, office. So leasing questions. Leasing is an interesting monster to get into. Sometimes it can be very lucrative, but it can be very tedious. You're getting into some things, and you're almost playing lawyer in some cases. You got to be very careful. And I guess it is the same with sales. The difference with a sale is that you have an attorney involved. And when I do leases, I don't always have an attorney involved. So I'm trying to play real estate agent, I'm trying to play the role of a real estate agent, and my clients are asking me lawyer questions. Like, what does this mean in the lease? And what happens if I do that? Okay. That's when you got to get, they may want to get an attorney involved, but, again, you don't know what you don't know. Give us a call. We're glad to help. We're glad to talk. We don't charge by the minute for phone calls. If we did, we would not have to be working anymore.
Right.
We consider them a courtesy. We want our agents that we work with to know that we know what we're talking about and we're fair to work with. And we enjoy just getting to know everybody. And now we've got a network of people out there. So like Andrew said, Andrew, if you got 20 minutes of your prospecting day to spend on commercial, it could become lucrative.
Yeah, very lucrative. give them a call. A lot of times you just call the property owner and say, are you willing to sell? We've got, we know buyers who'd be willing to make an offer on your property, and we can go into more detail on how to have those conversations. I think today was just the icebreaker of, thinking outside the box of your prospecting. You could add a whole nother world of people to call. And it's a different conversation, and then hand the baton off to us, or learn how to
Yeah.
do commercial with us. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we're not, we're open books, and we'd be happy to teach.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to cut it short. We're going to cut it off for the day. We do have a really cool episode coming up in a couple weeks here. We'll be sitting down with our commercial lender, our preferred commercial lender, Ed Long from Fifth Third Bank. He's actually in the Chastain Road location, correct? Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So we get a lot of questions. There's a lot of chatter on Facebook. Hey, who's your favorite commercial lender? And we always throw him out there. We've gotten nothing but positive feedback from those that have worked with him. And we've done multiple transactions with him over the years. So it's a good relationship to have. Obviously, there's plenty of lenders out there. We do know a few others, but Ed has agreed to come sit down with us, talk about commercial lending, how it's different from residential lending, and maybe answer a few of your questions about how that world works, because it is different. So we look forward to having him on. Andrew, it was good talking with you again.
Yes, sir.
Made it to episode 3, episode 4 with Ed, and then we move into a new year. We think we're going to start talking about what's in store for commercial real estate in 2024.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.